Hello friends, this is Mr. Ravindra Tajne. I welcome all of you to our YouTube channel as Ravitaj Online Banking Academy. I would like to request to kindly subscribe our channel for new updates of UPSC examinations, banking examinations and staff selection commission examinations and other allied examinations. In our lecture number 2, today we are discussing difference between assumptions and conclusion. In our lecture number 1, my dear friends, we have discussed this obviously difference between assumptions and conclusion by considering a very simple linear equation with one variable or same mathematical passage. In our today's lecture, we are discussing this example with actual case. I would like to request also kindly listen our video number 1 on statements and assumptions or a difference between assumptions and conclusion by considering very simple mathematical passage. Already I put over here also. So let's start our actual lecture. So my dear friend, this topic is presently asked in UPSC examinations also. Accordingly, suppose passage will be given to you. We have to read a passage. And UPSC presently asking read a passage and which assumption is most logically correct. Or read a passage and which assumption or which conclusion is most logically correct. Means this topic is obviously helping for comprehensions as well as in statements assumption also. So kindly listen this video till the last for more updates of or for more concepts of UPSC examination as well. And in banking examinations or in staff selection commission examinations or like other examinations where this topic is obviously famous, like suppose CAT or MAT examinations. Okay. So my dear friends, यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन कैसे पूछते हैं ऑथर. So statements will be given to you and followed by 2 or 3 assumptions are given to you, followed by 2 or 3 conclusions are given to you, and here question is to be asked, read a statement and which assumption is valid or which assumption is implicit or which conclusion is valid or which conclusion is implicit. This topic is famous in other exams also. So this topic will definitely guide you, and your accuracy also will definitely improve in our by observing our today's video. So listen this video properly and with very cautiously. Actually, most of students are confused between assumptions and conclusion, assumptions and logic. We are having separate terms on our separate video also. What is assumption, what is conclusion, what is inference, what is logic. We will discuss in our separate video. So today we are discussing by actual simple example by considering actual case, okay, in our day-to-day life. Suppose my dear friends, suppose we are watching match of India and Pakistan and we are die-hard or we are big fan of Mr. Virat Kohli, and suppose we state a single initially first statement that Mr. Virat Kohli is a fine batsman. Suppose you are saying to your friend or if you are saying in my mind, suppose initially 2 wickets have been fallen down, यहाँ पे 2 wickets suppose यहाँ पे गिर गई है, and suppose Mr. Virat Kohli comes for batting. Simple understand, we are understanding by simple way. Okay, so don't get confused, by step you understand everything with very neat and clean way. Okay, means as I said, हम मैच यहाँ पे देख रहे हैं और यहाँ पे सपोज 2 विकेट्स यहाँ पे गिर गई है एंड सपोज विराट कोहली जी यहाँ पे खेलने के लिए मैदान पे यहाँ पे आ गए हैं एंड सपोज वी स्टेट अ सिंपल स्टेटमेंट विराट कोहली इज अ फाइन बैट्समैन. Second statement we immediately say यहाँ पे my dear friends, a fine batsman is likely help his team to win the match. And third statement we say, so India may win the match. Okay, listen very carefully. So my dear friends, in ideal way of argumentations, as all statements are interlinked to each other. Listen very carefully. As all statements are interlinked to each other, so here no assumption is to be developed. And accordingly we conclude, so India may win the match. Means my dear friends, conclusions appears at the last. Normally conclusions appears at the last. Suppose if you are watching the movie, so movie अच्छी है या obviously खराब है, we are concluding at the last. We are not concluding suppose initially normally. So we are concluding at the last कि movie अच्छी है. So we can remember this concept also कि normally conclusions appears at the last. We are concluding at the last. Okay. So यहाँ पे हमारा conclusion बन रहा है, so India will win the match. Okay, so statement number 3 is conclusion over here. Means ideal way of argumentations, author is putting everything step by step to the readers. Means here, my dear friends, understand, author is not putting anything hidden from the readers. he is assuming that ki I should put everything very step by step. So I will not put hidden from you as a reader. So accordingly, my dear friends, in the ideal way of argumentations, nothing is put hidden from the author. So no assumption is to be developed. Listen very clearly and in proper way. No assumption is to be developed. Actually, students are drawing forceful assumptions in actual examinations, and that's why we are getting wrong answers over there. Okay, don't go for forceful assumptions. Logics are important for actually for drawing assumptions, but logics are not an assumptions. So we'll have separate difference between assumptions and logic in our separate video afterwards. So logics are important for drawing proper assumptions. Actually, this part belongs from analytical reasoning or critical reasoning, where arguments are important. Okay, so what is actually argument? If you want to define an argument is simply defined as argument will have statements, clauses, phrases whose one part is to claim something, and if claiming is there, then we are drawing assumptions, and whose one part is to conclude something, and if we want to conclude, then we are drawing conclusions. Means simple way. In arguments will have assumptions also and conclusions also, and that's why there are two methods of argumentations to be developed. And first method is called as ideal way of arguing, and second method is called as actual way of arguing. Okay, so in our moving ahead, so we have discussed what is argument. In our first lecture also we have discussed argument very properly. We may observe this video also in terms of lecture number 1. This is our lecture number 2 for more on assumptions and conclusion. So let's come to our actual topic. So in ideal way of argumentation, as I said, we are putting everything step by step. Nothing is put by hidden by the author. So no assumption is to be developed. Means I repeat once again, statement number 1 यहाँ पे हम स्टेट कर रहे हैं कि विराट कोहली इज अ फाइन बैट्समैन. स्टेटमेंट 2 हम इमीडिएटली यहाँ पे बोल रहे हैं कि अ फाइन बैट्समैन इज लाइकली हेल्प हिज टीम टू विन द मैच. And statement number 3 we concluding at the last, so India may win the match. Actually, for drawing the conclusions here, friends, the words are very important. So, hence, therefore, it proves that, it means that, it infer that, it suggests that. So read like a detective. In argumentations, read like a detective. Okay, this is very proper statement that we have to read the facts very carefully. Means the words like so, hence, therefore, it proves that, it means that, these words are helping for drawing a conclusion. If you want to define a conclusion, the conclusions means nothing but, my dear friends, conclusion is nothing but decisions taken at the last. But conclusion can be drawn with the assumptions also. And that's why यहाँ पे आपकी second method यहाँ पे बन रही है actual way of arguing. Okay, actual way of arguing. That's why you are confusing between assumptions and conclusion. So let's come to second half of our video. Suppose if you want to understand what is assumptions and conclusion, which I talk in our first lecture or first video, that is by considering a simple linear equation. As I said, suppose we are in the 4th standard. We are very young, or we are very in our childhood days. We are not everything. Okay, means we are not everything. So we are writing everything minute thing step by step. Suppose teacher told you, my dear friend, suppose solve this equation. So we write everything step by step. Suppose statement number 1, 3x plus 6 is equal to 9. Statement number 2, 3x is equal to 9 minus 6. Statement number 3 is equal to 3x is equal to 3. Statement number 4 is equal to x is equal to 3 by 3. And statement number 5, my dear friends, we write at the last x is equal to 1. So यहाँ पे हम बारीकी से यहाँ पे देखते हैं, तो यहाँ पे all statements are interlinked to each other. Okay, all statements are interlinked to each other, and because of interlinking of the statements, because it is stated neat and clean way, यहाँ पे आपको passage में दिए है, और यहाँ पे भी आपको इस केस 3 statements में यहाँ पे दिया है. So यहाँ पे if ask you what is an assumption, तो यहाँ पे आपका assumption नहीं बन रहा है, because what, as all statements are interlinked to each other. So यहाँ पे 2 तरीके से author यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन पूछ सकता है कि x is equal to 3 by 3, this statement is true or false. So obviously it is true, because talk in the passage, talk in the equations, talk in the means actual presentation. So यहाँ पे x is equal to 3 by 3, this statement is obviously true. But second question आपको यहाँ पे पूछा है मैंने कि x इज इक्वल टू 3/3, ये आपका अजम्पशन है. नो माय डियर फ्रेंड, दिस इज नॉट अजम्पशन ओवर हियर. दिस इज योर ऑब्वियसली स्टेटमेंट ट्रू है, लेकिन अजम्पशन यहाँ पे नहीं है, बिकॉज ऑल स्टेटमेंट्स आर स्टेटेड ओपनली इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू. जैसे कम टू आवर एक्चुअल केस, यहाँ पे भी ऑल स्टेटमेंट्स आर ऑब्वियसली डिफाइंड और स्टेटेड स्टेप बाय स्टेप इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू. सो यहाँ पे भी नहीं, अजम्पशन यहाँ पे नहीं बन रहा. ये यहाँ पे समझने की इंपॉर्टेंट एक्चुअल केस है. मीन्स डोंट गो फॉर forceful assumption. In simple way, my dear friends, don't go for forceful assumptions. Okay. And accordingly यहाँ पे हम कंफ्यूज हो सकते हैं कि assumption and conclusion means if all statements are interlinked to each other, then no assumption is to be developed. ये आपको समझना पड़ेगा. Means normally assumptions are drawn from two or more statements. Okay. Normally assumptions are drawn from where two facts are there. Means आपको ये भी समझना पड़ेगा, assumptions are drawn from two statements where two facts are there. Actually assumption also can be drawn from one statement also, but वहाँ पे दो facts होनी चाहिए. Okay, so comes to our second half of our video, where author is not putting everything step by step in front of reader. Author is assuming that, my dear friends, you have to understand my views. Okay, this is very important. I will not put everything step by step in front of you. You have to understand my views as a author's point of view. So if you want to define an assumption, the assumption can be very simply defined as, assumption is something assumed. Listen very carefully, listen very, very carefully. Something assumed, something supposed, and something taken for granted indirectly with author's point of view, not with our point of view, with author's point of view. यहाँ पे तीन स्टेप my dear friends important है. First something assumed, then something supposed, and something taken for granted. This statement is important, taken for granted with author's point of view, not your point of view, not my point of view, not reader point of view, and accordingly called as assumption. In simple way, my dear friends, assumptions are unsaid part of the statement or unsaid part of the passage, hidden part of the passage. Okay, and accordingly assumptions are always hidden in the passage, and we have to draw in terms of author's point of view, and according logics are important for drawing assumptions. So I go with one second simple case for understanding. Same case, suppose in case of actual way of arguing. Actual way of arguing means what? Author is putting hidden from you. Suppose I go to our actual example, my dear friend. Suppose once again consider same example. Mr. Virat Kohli ji is a fine batsman. Mr. Virat Kohli is a fine batsman. And my dear friends, यहाँ पे हम डायरेक्टली स्टेटमेंट नंबर 3 पे आ गए हैं. सो इंडिया may win the match. So India may win the match. Means we conclude, but indirectly. यहाँ पे हम डायरेक्टली कंक्लूजन यहाँ पे हम निकाल रहे हैं. यहाँ पे हम कंक्लूजन इनडायरेक्टली वी आर पुटिंग इनडायरेक्टली. सो इंडिया मे विन द मैच. ओके, सो यहाँ पे आपको सिंपल क्वेश्चन, यहाँ पे सपोज आई आस्क यू, सपोज मैं यहाँ पे पूछ रहा हूँ आपको क्वेश्चन कि व्हाट इज अजम्पशन. सो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, लिसन वेरी वेरी केयरफुली. यहाँ पे आपकी कंसेप्ट पूरी बारीकी से यहाँ पे क्लियर होने वाली है. मीन्स यहाँ पे फ्रेंड्स, assumption is always linked between premise and conclusion. Means when we want to draw an assumption, so simple concept to be developed. First we'll understand the concept, and then we'll once I go to actual example. So simple concept to be developed, that is premise plus assumption is equal to conclusion. In simple way, premise means P, assumption means A, and conclusion means C. So what is premise? Premise means first part of the statement. Listen very carefully. Premise means first fact of the passage or first fact of the statement. So first fact of the passage is what, or of the statement is what? Author talks about the fine batsman. And second fact of the conclusion, I repeat once again, conclusion, that author talks about winning the match. So by joining the two sentences, simple assumption is to be developed. A fine batsman is likely help his team to win the match. I repeat once again. A fine batsman is likely help his team to win the match, because we are assuming accordingly, because it is put hidden. And assumption is obviously, I have taken reference of statement number 1 in terms of premise, and reference of statement number 2 in terms of conclusion. Means in simple way, in terms of actual way of argumentations, author is giving you premise and conclusion, और यहाँ पे आपको assumption निकालना है. Okay, so simply my dear friends, assumption is linked between premise and a conclusion. Means if anyone asks you what is rule of assumptions, So my dear friends, assumptions are important for proper conclusions. Okay, remember very neat and clean way. Assumptions are important for proper conclusions. If our assumptions are wrong, then our conclusions are also wrong. Okay, so once again come to our actual task or actual case. In ideal way of arguing, as author is putting everything step by step in front of readers. So here, my dear friends, no assumptions to be developed. Only conclusions are developed. Only conclusions are developed. But in actual way of argumentations, assumptions are also developed, and with the help of assumptions, conclusions are also developed. As listen here or observe here, as statement number note in terms of note, statement number 2 is unsaid. यहाँ पे अनसेड है, अनसेड में यहाँ पे बोला नहीं गया है, आपको अज्यूम करना पड़ेगा बाय टेकिंग रेफरेंस ऑफ प्रीमाइस एंड कंक्लूजन, and it is unsaid over here, it is said over here. Simple, don't get confused. It is said over here. Said means no assumption to be developed. It is unsaid over here, so assumption is to be developed. And my dear friends, assumption is what? Simply a fine batsman may help or likely help his team to win the match. Okay, so यहाँ पे हमने obviously in our first video, you may also observe this first video by going our YouTube channel as Ravidas Online Banking Academy. You can observe our first video also. We have taken by very simple example, that is suppose यहाँ पे इसे हमने देखा है कि all statements are interlinked to each other, so no assumption is to be developed. So in this case, suppose we are understanding when we are in the suppose 10th standard. So in the 10th standard, we are knowing most of things. Suppose same equation teacher told you to solve 3x plus 6 is equal to 9. So in the 10th standard, we are not writing everything step by step. We do in mind. Okay, बहुत सारी चीजें हम mind में यहाँ पे calculate करते हैं. So यहाँ we are not putting everything step by step. So accordingly, we hardly write steps. Suppose to or not writing. Okay, so suppose we may write directly x is equal to 1 by doing number of things, by calculating number of things in mind. So we are concluding x is equal to 1, but indirectly. So if you observe the note, my dear friends, step number 2, 3, 4 are unsaid steps and accordingly called as assumptions of the mathematical equations. यहाँ पे if you observe the note, in ideal way of argumentations, no assumption is to be developed. In actual way of argumentation, suppose if I ask you, my dear friends, x is equal to suppose 3 by 3, this statement is true or false? Obviously true, but drawn what? Indirectly from the passage. यहाँ पे x is equal to 3 by 3, this statement is true or false? Obviously true, but drawn directly from the passage. ये आपको समझना पड़ेगा. It is drawn directly from the passage. Suppose यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन पूछा है आपको, a fine batsman is likely help his team to win the match. This statement is true or false? Obviously true. But ये आपको क्वेश्चन पूछा है as a author कि this is an assumption. No, my dear friend, this is not an assumption because it is not hidden. ये आपको समझना पड़ेगा. It is not hidden. यहाँ पे hidden है, and accordingly we have developed a new concept. We'll have a separate video on this premise plus assumption is equal to conclusion. How we can apply these concepts in terms of passage also, or in terms of examples of assumptions and conclusions also. We have a separate video. Okay, in our separate video we'll discuss that is what is P plus A is equal to C. So my dear friends, यहाँ पे I repeat once again, step number 2, 3, 4 are unsaid steps and accordingly called as assumptions. Actually, I'm repeating the statements once again repeatedly because what? It is actually part of critical reasoning or critical thinking, where most of students are confused. So what is assumption? What is conclusion? What is logic? And which are the methods for drawing good assumptions? My dear friends, actually most of exams are not only go with the practice. Most of exams are focused by knowing the concepts also, and we are not having our concepts to be very neat and clean. And in my second video, I try my best to understand the concepts of assumptions and conclusion by knowing simple linear equation and by knowing the actual case in our day-to-day life. I hope obviously you understand all these basic concepts of assumptions and conclusion. So to conclude with, okay, what is assumption? So my dear friends, assumption is simply defined as something assumed, something supposed, and something taken for granted indirectly with author's point of view. Okay, assumption can be true or false. Okay, assumption can be true or false means if I ask you which options are in examinations एक्चुअली 5 आंसर ऑप्शंस आर टू बी डेवलप। सपोज यहाँ पे आपको 2 अजम्पशन यहाँ पे दिए है और स्टेटमेंट, सपोज 2 स्टेटमेंट आपको यहाँ पे दिए और 2 अजम्पशन यहाँ पे आपको नीचे दिए, तो 5 आंसर ऑप्शंस कैन बी डेवलप। assumption first is valid, first option. Second option, assumption second is valid. Third option, assumption, both assumption first and second valid. Fourth, my dear friends, most of the students are thinking that neither nor. My dear friends, this is very important rule. Before choosing neither nor, think for the case of either or. So fourth option normally, if this author is putting before neither nor, that is either assumption first and second is valid, and last option is obviously what, neither assumption first nor second is valid. So my dear friends, we have to understand this also, key how the question can be set, which are the options to be asked in examinations, and how we can master in assumptions and conclusion by knowing the basic concepts of all these two ways. That is, first way is called as ideal way of arguing, where author is putting step by step, and accordingly so no assumption is to be developed. In actual way, author is putting number of things hidden from the readers, and he is assuming you have to understand with my point of view, and so here assumptions also develop, and with assumptions proper conclusions are also developed. So if you want to define a conclusion, so as I said, conclusions appear at the last. यहाँ पे देखिए आप दो जगह पे आपका स्टेटमेंट नंबर 3 कंक्लूजन ही है. We have taken decision at the last, so India may win the match. So India may win the match. So we define a conclusion. Conclusion can be safely defined as decisions taken at the last. So conclusion can be also true or false. Conclusion can be also true or false. ये आपको समझना पड़ेगा. So I use very statement with very proper way. So assumption can be a conclusion. Listen very carefully. Listen very carefully. Assumption can be a conclusion, but conclusion cannot be always assumption. So we can have a separate video. So that's why I'm requesting all of you to kindly subscribe our channel as Ravitaj Online Banking Academy for new updates and new concepts. Means, as I said, means wars are not win with the weapons. Wars are win with the strategies, plannings. Means हमें सिर्फ practice नहीं करनी है. Practice भी important है, but before going for practice, you have to understand the concepts. Means by role of teaching is what, or my means I am always asking to the students to clear the concepts, okay, and then you can hit the question step by step with highest accuracy. So I hope you have obviously liked this video. I have nice interactions and discussions with you in our today's video. So I request you to observe our first video also for knowing proper ways of assumptions and conclusion. And I would like to request you kindly like our video, kindly share our video, and please subscribe our YouTube channel as Ravitaj Online Banking Academy for new updates of UPSC examinations, banking examinations, and staff selection commission examination, other allied examinations. So thank you very much.